Pattie Boyd is no longer ashamed to talk about the life she used to live in the shadow of fame now that she is 80 years old. For decades, she was seen as the beautiful muse of two of rock's most famous men. Songs like Something and Layla made her famous. But there was a much darker truth behind all the glitz and romance than anyone could have dreamed. The story is no longer inspiring in her own words. The story of the model who became a muse is one of betrayal, shame, and pain. Her story began a long way from the bright lights of London's rock scene. She was born Patricia Ann Boyd on March 17, 1944, in Somerset, England. She was the oldest of 4 children and grew up in a home that was always changing and being unstable. The family lived in Nairobi, Kenya, while her father was in the Royal Air Force. In 1952, her parents got a divorce. She left her mother to get married again and moved the kids back to England. In London in the early 1960s, Pattie was a girl who was bored and looking for her place in the world. Her first job was as a shampoo girl at Elizabeth Arden's salon. It wasn't an exciting start, but things changed when the assistant to a photographer saw how talented she was. She was soon on the front pages of Vogue, Elle, and Vanity Fair. With her big eyes, long hair, and gentle features, she was one of the faces that set the tone for the 1960s. Her style, which was both bohemian and modern, set trends that defined an age. Designers like Ossie Clark named collections after her. But she did more than just clothes for a living. Girl from School was cast as Boyd in the Beatles' movie A Hard Day's Night in 1964. It was a small part that changed Boyd's life forever. George Harrison was the quiet lead guitarist for the Beatles. They met on set. They fell in love right away, and on January 21, 1966, they were married. He loved her so much that he wrote classic songs like Something and For You Blue to honor her. Something was called by Frank Sinatra the best love song of the last 50 years. The cracks were already there, though, even in these early years. Boyd started to feel alone and unnoticed as Harrison became more and more interested in Indian culture and eventually cheated on his wife. She quit modeling because he asked her to in order to make their marriage stronger, but now she was stuck at home being a little wife. Eventually, her need for love and approval would lead her to another man, Eric Clapton, who was close with George. Clapton's weakness and the birth of Layla. In the middle of the 1960s, Eric Clapton and Pattie Boyd met for the first time. They were both involved in the top London rock and fashion scenes at the time. Clapton was already known as one of the best musicians of his time at that point for a reason. He was so good that people called him Slowhand because he played so well with the Yardbirds and then John Mayall's Bluesbreakers. He helped start Cream in 1966, which was one of the first rock supergroups. Their heavy blues sound made him famous all over the world. But while Clapton's career was going great, he was having a terrible time with an obsession that wouldn't go away. Even though Clapton was very close with George Harrison, he was deeply in love with Boyd. His close friends and family knew how he felt. Clapton was upset that she was married to someone else, even his best friend, and talked about her all the time, according to friends like Bobby Whitlock. In 1969, the passion was written down. Boyd got a letter from a fan who didn't want to be identified. It was signed only with the initial E. There was a lot of fear and desire in it. I would give up my family for nothing more than the joys of the past. About my God and my life. Take me if you want to, I'm yours. Please break the magic that holds me if you don't want me. Boyd said years later that she was completely shocked. She was shocked and pleased by how strongly he spoke, but she was still married to George. She decided to be loyal at the time and told her husband what was going on. Clapton's pain only got worse. In the end, his unrequited love showed up in his music, resulting in Layla and Other Assorted Love Songs, a masterpiece released in 1970. Clapton used his pain to write the song Layla, which is a fiery confession of love and sorrow. It was inspired by the 12th century Persian story Layla and Majnun. The song was real, emotional, and clearly meant for Boyd. Clapton used it as both a cry for help and a love song that everyone could hear. Boyd later said that the song made her give up. The song got the best of me when I realized I had stirred up so much emotion and creativity. She said, I could no longer resist. Boyd started to doubt herself in the early 1970s, when her marriage to Harrison was already falling apart because of cheating and spiritual distance. It was hard to ignore Clapton's unwavering dedication. What started out as a dangerous temptation quickly turned into one of the most famous love triangles in rock history, with Harrison's marriage falling apart and Clapton chasing after her. It was getting worse for George Harrison and Pattie Boyd's marriage by the early 1970s. It started out as a fairy tale marriage, glued together by Beatlemania. But distance, cheating, and different goals ruined it. Harrison's interest in Eastern faith, which used to bring them together, turned into a way of life that Boyd was often left out of. He spent a lot of time in India meditating and following the Hare Krishna movement, while she felt more and more left out. In retrospect, Boyd said that she felt invisible because she was stuck in the part of the good wife and wanted her life to have more meaning. Harrison's affairs made her feel even more alone. Boyd said he was a hot-blooded boy who loved the attention of women who came to see him because of his fame. Things that started out as light-hearted flirtations turned into clear cheating. The worst deception was when she found out Harrison was having an affair with Ringo Starr's wife, Maureen Starkey. Boyd remembered how embarrassing it was to find Maureen at Friar Park, the Harrison home, lying on a mattress without a care in the world while George ignored her. That was the last straw, and she said the wound would never fully heal. At the same time, Clapton's quest got more direct. He was sick of suffering in quiet and went up to Harrison in 1970 and told him straight out, "Man, I'm in love with your wife." That was a really cool moment. One guitarist telling the wife of another musician that he loves her in public. Harrison usually keeps to himself, but he responded with a mix of resignation and sarcasm, as if he had to face the truth and could no longer deny it. Their song showed how tense things were between the two men. Later, actor John Hurt talked about seeing what he called a guitar duel at Friar Park. It was a tense jam session where Harrison and Clapton used their instruments to show their rage, rivalry, and frustration instead of their fists. Boyd later said the event wasn't really what happened, but she did say the feelings were real. She said they were boys and guys. When George played guitar with Eric, he really let out all of his annoyance, anger, and irritation. By 1974, Boyd could not ignore the truth any longer. Harrison's abuse and neglect had made her marriage to him unbearable, leaving her with a hollow shell. That year, she broke up with him, putting an end to almost 10 years of being married to a bug. But freedom didn't bring peace, it just started a new storm that was just as hard to handle. Clapton was right there, ready to attack. His rage hadn't gone away, but his demons were about to swallow them both. Love, addiction, marriage to Clapton, and deception. When Pattie Boyd finally split up with George Harrison in 1974, it looked like she and Eric Clapton were going to start dating. He had been crazy about her for years, expressing his love in music, emails, and public statements. While Boyd was still divorced from Harrison in 1977, she started dating Clapton in public. They got married in Tucson, Arizona, on March 27, 1979, 2 years after they got together. George Harrison went to the wedding himself, calling Clapton his husband-in-law in jest. From the outside, this strange arrangement looked like a close bond that could withstand betrayal. The marriage of Boyd and Clapton seemed like a love story that had finally reached its peak for a short time. But the truth was much darker than the smiles and good looks. Clapton was still going through a hard time with drugs and drink. He had scars from years of heroin abuse, and even though he got over that, he quickly became an alcoholic again. The relationship was ruined by his drinking binges and crazy behavior. Boyd later told her that his drug-fueled mood swings made her feel like she was always not knowing what would happen next. A marriage that should have been stable and happy turned into another cage of mental turmoil. Their union was also put to the test by other problems. Boyd really wanted to have kids with Clapton, and Clapton really wanted to start a family. They tried in vitro fertilization, but each time it failed, it broke their hearts. Boyd said the process was embarrassing and mentally draining, and she was heartbroken over her repeated failures. Clapton broke her trust in the worst way possible while she was going through the silent sadness of not being able to have children. In 1985, Boyd found out that Clapton had a daughter named Ruth with Yvonne Kelly, who worked as a manager at a recording studio. The betrayal hurt a lot, especially since Boyd was already going through the terrible pain of failed IVF treatments. After only a year, Clapton had another kid, Connor, with Italian actress Lori Del Santo while he was still married to Boyd. The news was like a knife to the heart for Pattie. Later, she said that she felt betrayed by fate because she was trying so hard to have children with the man she loved while he was having children with other women behind her back. Infidelity, drug use, and broken hopes caused the marriage to fall apart by the mid-1980s. Boyd broke up with Clapton in 1987, and they got a divorce in 1989. When she thought about it now, she said it was terrible and that she had lost her sense of self. I was no longer Mrs. Famed Eric or Mrs. Famed George. What was I? I wasn't anyone. In art and writing, Clapton finds new life after he stops playing. In 1987, when Pattie Boyd broke up with Eric Clapton, she wasn't just a woman ending a marriage. She was someone who was trying to figure out who she really was again. After decades of being shaped by others. There were two of the most famous artists in the world living right next to her for more than 20 years. She was praised, adored, and sung about, but she was rarely seen for herself. First as the wife of a Beatle, then as the muse of a guitar god. She was determined to take back her own identity now that she was separated from both men. Boyd went to treatment to get her relationships back on track after being hurt, betrayed, and ignored for a long time. She was honest when she said that her sense of self-worth had been broken. The repeated comparisons, first to Harrison's never-ending stream of women and then to Clapton's affairs, had hurt him. But it took a while to get better, and being creative was a big part of that. When she was down, photography, which she had loved on her own, saved her. Boyd started to write about the world around her with a sharp eye that came from growing up in the rock and roll scene. She took photos that were close, real, and very personal. They showed moments of both famous people she knew and her own struggle to stay alive. Her work became better known over time. Her skill to use pictures to tell stories was shown in London and other cities around the world. As time went on, she stopped being just an idea and became an artist in her own right. Writing was another way that people found freedom. Wonderful Tonight, George Harrison, Eric Clapton, and Me, Boyd's autobiography, came out in 2007. People all over the world loved the book because it was so honest and real. She told the world for the first time what it was really like to live with two of rock's biggest stars, the cheating, the loneliness, the pain, and the rare times when they were truly together. Fans who had long thought her marriages were perfect were shocked when she told them the truth. But the book was more than just an exposé. After decades of quiet, it was her way of getting her voice back. Boyd was used to life without the shadow of rock mythology by the time she was in her 70s. Rod Weston was a real estate developer she had known for years. They got married in a small wedding at Chelsea Old Town Hall in 2015. This marriage wasn't based on fame, passion, or chaos like her other ones. It was based on friendship, peace, and respect for each other. For many years, Pattie Boyd was the voice behind the songs. Now she is finally starting to write her own story. Legacy at 80, The Hidden Truth is finally out in the open. Even though she is 80 years old, Pattie Boyd speaks with the clarity that comes from having lived through decades of pain, fire, and disappointment. The allure of being a rock star's muse has long since worn off, and what those years really cost her has taken its place. She has said that her relationship with Eric Clapton was not the love dream that many people thought it would be. It was a pattern of addiction, betrayal, and not caring about how they felt. He told her he would give up everything for her love, but then he broke her trust in the most private way. Boyd hasn't been afraid to call out the unfairness she had to deal with. Clapton was having children with other women while she was going through the heartbreak of failed IVF treatments and the crushing stress of not being able to have children. She said that finding out about his affairs was like getting stabbed in the heart. The betrayal hurt even more because it made fun of her darkest wounds. But her admissions aren't meant to make people feel sorry for her, they're acts of redemption. Boyd has decided to let her story be told in her own way, rather than just being a face in someone else's song. She has taken on the myths that made her life look glamorous through her memoir, art shows, and honest talks. She told everyone that behind Layla and Wonderful Tonight was a woman who had been hurt, embarrassed, and left alone. But her impact also shows that she will live on. Boyd has put her life back together after being hurt and let down. Rod Weston, her third husband, has given her security. she is still admired for her photography and impact on culture. At age 80, she is no longer a muse whose worth is decided by others. Instead, she is a fighter who has finally told the truth, even though it was painful and necessary. What do you think about the shocking things Pattie Boyd said about her marriage to Eric Clapton? Do you think she was treated badly or that she was just caught up in the fame and ego storm? Leave your thoughts in the box below. Don't forget to hit the bell, like, and follow to make sure you don't miss our next story.